Hi guys, Nick Thomas here at the Academy of Historical Fencing. Welcome back. Wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to kick things off. So this is going to be the Christmas message combined with 2017 Roundup, because yeah, we've actually made it to the end of the year. So Roundup of the year. Well, the first thing is HEMA is not dead, which, you know, is a pretty good thing. In fact, I would say HEMA is more alive than it's ever been. The number of new practitioners is probably higher than I think I've ever seen it. The amount of people doing research and reading and taking up new sword styles is just exploding. And, you know, military sabre, you know, Napoleonic military sabre, a few years ago, a handful of people doing it. Now it's just exploding. So yeah, wonderful. HEMA is the exact opposite of dead. So that's the first bit of news. Next thing is, you know, I love my military sabre. I study a lot of styles, but Napoleonic era military sabre is, you know, one of my true loves, I would say. One of, not only. And we always needed a good training sword to do it. Now, I love steel. I use loads of steel training swords, but a good synthetic is really useful as a beginner's tool and a generally useful tool for anybody anyway. It's not just a beginner's weapon. And it's especially well suited, synthetic, to this style of combat because we don't have a lot of hand protection, and getting a good sort of big glove to work is difficult in terms of protection and mobility. So I worked with Black Fencer to develop what I think is the closest sort of you could ever get to an original, and this is based on a lot of my originals and a lot of museum pieces as well. I do own a lot of swords of this period, the Napoleonic period. So this is now the V5 Black Fencer sabre, which came out this year, and now represents in size, handling, style, weight, in every way. It represents an original sort of average Napoleonic British infantry sabre. So I'm really happy about that. And we have got, I don't know how many of these in the club, maybe 60 of them, I think, or something ridiculous. They're incredibly popular. We just had a new order in today, and there were 9 of them in that order. So yeah, they're really, really popular, and I use mine every session. Really reliable, and they represent the style that we practice really, really well. So that's been a huge bonus, particularly at a time when we've lost so many steel sabre suppliers over the years. You know, the Red Dragon ones are out of production. Regeni is only producing sort of heavy cavalry types, not heavy cavalry, but heavy sabres for cavalry. So it's not particularly useful to us. So yeah, having this has been wonderful. What else has happened? Well, more recently, lightweight jackets. I've been absolutely sick to death of heavy, thick jackets that, you know, I'm just so bulked down by. We practice swordsmanship for unarmoured combat, or at least most of us in HEMA do most of the time. Occasionally I'll put some armour on for some partial armoured stuff, but you know, that's a rarity. We do unarmoured combat, so we want our training to be as close to unarmoured as it possibly can be. And when you're wearing a over 3 kilo sort of thick Gambeson type jacket, you know, and all the gear that goes with it, it sort of deviates a bit too far, I would say, from what we're trying to do. I don't like having too thick a padding anyway. People just ignore hits and take chances that they shouldn't do and just brush it off. You know, if I get hit in the flank with a sabre, I want to regret having not defended myself. So I think that's a good thing. We're starting to see jackets in the sort of 1.5 to 1.8 kilo range, which I think is perfect for the vast majority of HEMA training, as opposed to the sort of 3 to 3.5 kilo stuff we were seeing becoming the norm before that. So that's been wonderful, and more breathable fabrics and all that kind of stuff. And, oh yeah, and red. You know, red is good. So we've gone to using red jackets a lot in the club, and it looks good. You know, British red coats, red dragon, red cross of St George. We've got every right to use red. It's definitely a very British, English, Welsh colour. Yeah, that's nice. Nice to add a bit of colour. We've already had it in our hoodies for a while, so yeah, why not introduce it to the club as well? What else has happened? We've introduced the AHF duel system, whereby our members can challenge one another to a sort of as close as you could expect to a historical duel. Obviously it's not using sharp weapons, it's not trying to actually hurt each other, but the idea is the mindset is supposed to be there as accurately as possible for a real duel. So you have to issue at least 24 hours in advance. The person who's been challenged chooses the weapon to fight with, and they then meet for the fight and fight to essentially a killing or incapacitating blow. And it has to be also be filmed and then put live and analysed as well. So it's kind of, yeah, as accurately and closely as possible resembling an original duel. And the reason I wanted to do that is not only because it would be fun for our members to be able to have some kind of challenge thing. You know, a lot of people like tournaments. I'm not a huge fan of tournaments. I've competed in them and run them and all kinds of things, but not a big fan. You know, people can do them, I don't have a problem with it, but personally I'm not a big fan. But, you know, challenging yourself in different ways is an excellent thing to do, and in different sort of competitive scenarios as well. And then the duels are one way that we found that really works well for that, because it's just two people, and, you know, there's no sort of, oh, I can make up points later, I can get into the next pool, or, you know, get some point on a list. It's no, there is one person in front of you, that is all that matters. You get hit, that's it, it's over. So I think it much more accurately represents a fight and the kind of fight mentality and psychology that I'd like to see in fighters. And it has shown people are going in really cautiously, and where they're not, they're punished for it. So I think that's a good thing. And that's something we're going to expand on, and we'll always have different methods of pushing people in different scenarios anyway. So yeah, the duel systems work really effectively. We did a load of test runs and we've done a few actual duels now. That's nice. They've all been sabre so far. I mean, I chose sabre when somebody challenged me, but that's because I love sabre. And I hope we'll see, you know, different weapons coming into play before long as well. Anything else that has changed this year? Well, the spadroon. You know, with the military swordsmanship that we do, there's the three weapon forms. It's the sabre, the broadsword, and the spadroon. You know, the sort of holy trinity of British swordsmanship. And we've had broadswords of different kinds for a while, and we've now got the sabre nailed down. But the spadroon, no, we just haven't had anything. I've had a few steel spadroons, and I tend to break them really quickly because they're kind of very light blades that are taking a beating. You're basically taking a kind of rapier-esque blade that is then taking the beating of a sabre or a broadsword and fighting sabres and broadswords all the time, and I just keep breaking them. So, you know, yeah, I hope to find a good steel supplier of spadroons, but it's not easy. So synthetic wise, I got Black Fencer to make something, and as with the V5 sabre, I wanted to go as realistic to the original swords as humanly possible, matching weight balance, style, and overall handling characteristics. And I got them to develop the first one, and it sort of, you know, did the job reasonably well. And I just got a second one in, which is this one, which now much more accurately represents an original 1796 pattern British spadroon. So it's got nice strong shells, stronger than the originals actually, because they were brass on the originals as well. But size wise they're about right. It's got the knuckle bow, which is shaped a bit more accurately, the blade's a bit longer, and the quillen is correct, and the knuckle bow is, yeah, the right shape. And yeah, it's much more accurately representing an original spadroon now. I would say proportionally they ended up a bit too big on this. The grip's a bit too long and the blade's a bit too long, but that's of course just how they make up the individual sword. Every element, I would say, is perfect on this now. I would just have the proportions reduced slightly on the blade length and the grip length, but aside from that, they've absolutely nailed the spadroon down. So I'm going to order another one of these, and I'm going to use this, and it's still a good training sword, but I'm going to get it absolutely perfect. I mean, this is, you know, 1 gram difference to that original I just showed you. The balance is about the same. This one, I said, it came out a little bit too long, but you get the idea. It's going for a very accurate representation of the original training sword. So I think we will finally have nailed this spadroon down. And frankly, if you wanted to order one of these now, you could just go to Black Fencer and say, I want the spadroon that Nick and the AHF had, but just reduce the blade down to 82 centimeters and the whole hilt length down to 14, which is what I'm going to tell them to do. And in every other way, match this specification because it's perfect. So yeah, we've got the spadroon sorted out, so pretty happy about that. So it will be the perfect spadroon, as funny as that sounds, you know. So that'll be quite nice. And what else for the yearly roundup? You know, there have been a few new gloves released, which have been, I would say, quite good for things like longsword. Not so good for sort of sabre and side sword users. So I think we're still looking on that front. Is that, yeah, on the longsword front, lots of glove options. For other stuff, not so great still. So, you know, other companies are still making things, and we can hope that things come in time. But there have been some nice progressions on training swords, on training equipment. We've started doing my rapier this year, which is a good bit of fun, and also Mancellino for sword and buckler. So that's, you know, a nice addition to what we're doing, because typically what we've focused on is longsword from Maya, sabre from the Roth and Angelo stuff, and rapier from Capoferro. And we've run a few, you know, sort of segments on other things like Lignitza, sword and buckler and stuff like that, but we tend to keep to those 3 sort of core weapons that we've got. But we've now got Maya rapier and Mancellino sword and buckler, so that's That's been some really fun additions. Yeah, it's nice to do a bit of side sword action, you know. Add in a lot of back edge work, which we're not really doing, because, you know, you do Capoferro and you do British Military Sabre, you don't do a lot of back edge stuff. So that's really, really nice. And I like bucklers as well. Even though I've never really gone that much into research on bucklers. I've been fighting with bucklers for 20 years, so I do it commonly. I just didn't have a style I taught that was, you know, particularly representative of any until now. So I'll talk about that in future videos as well. What else? I suppose that's probably the roundup for the year, really. It's gone quite successfully. We get, you know, regular members through. It's nice to see HEMA doing incredibly well. The tournament scene is obviously, you know, is developed further, which, you know, is not my personal preference, but people are having fun with it, and a lot of our members are going and enjoying that, sort of, you know, the Wessex League and stuff like that. And yeah, that's 2017 roundup. I haven't injured myself. Awesome. Well, nobody else has injured me. So yeah, that's all been good. So that's the sort of Christmas message. Going into the new year, you know, people always talk about New Year's resolutions. Well, if you were going to do anything at any time of the year, why the hell wouldn't you have done it already? That's all bullshit. But if you ask me, what would you do going into the new year? Do more HEMA. Because people are always saying, how can I get better at this? How can I get better at that? First thing is, show up and do HEMA every week. And if you can't for some reason get to a HEMA session that week, do some training at home. If you're not training once a week with HEMA, you're not going to be progressing at the rate that you'd want to. And as I said, you can train at home. There are loads of things you can do at home. It'd be better to go to a training session, but do something HEMA related every single week. Minimum 1 day every week, even if you just do some solo practice for half an hour. That would be hugely better than not doing anything. So yeah, that's the #1 thing for the new year for everybody: do more HEMA. And that can be anything you like. It can be doing some reading, doing some research, ideally doing some practice as well. Get some solo drills in, turn up to your sessions, and just do lots of HEMA. That is the answer. You know, you want to become fitter, so, you know, for HEMA, do more do more sparring. You want to be, you know, develop arm strength for using sabres, use sabres more. You know, it is quite sport specific in that regard. You know, if you want to go to the gym, fine. And I do enjoy the gym, but if you want to develop strength and conditioning for the sabre, you need to do more sabre. So that's it, more HEMA. Simple as that. And the only other thing I would add is go back to the beginning, as Vicini said. You know, the thing that I would say that people are not doing a lot of is some core basics. You know, most of what we do in the club is sort of Renaissance up to early 19th century, and that means it's really lunge-based most of the time, and a lot of the styles that people are doing in HEMA are lunge-based at their core. Not all, but a lot. And I'm not seeing a lot of lunging going on. And the reason I'm not seeing a lot of lunging going on is because the body mechanics are pretty much the most difficult thing to achieve in a kind of martial arts sense, because it's not natural. We don't walk like a lunge. You know, it's not the Ministry of Silly Walks. So the lunge is not natural. You have to actually really practice it. And I'm just not seeing people lunging an awful lot at all. And if you just look at the absolute, go back to your basics, learn to lunge and slip, because the slip we use in sabre, that's in most of the other styles anyway. It's just not on every parry. But if you work on your lunge and slip system, you will develop massively as a fighter. So I would say, really go back to your basics. Look at your fighting style. How many lunges are you ever doing? And are they any good? Are they fast? Are they powerful? Do you have decent recovery times? You know, the lunge is so vital to most styles from particularly late 16th going into the 19th century. Hundreds of years there where the lunge is absolutely vital. And rapier is one of the worst ones I'm seeing for it. It's because people are going into rapier where the sense of, and especially rapier and dagger, is we'll just essentially run into the fight, get an engagement with the dagger so we can get the rapier in there, and that's it. Which, you know, it's a legitimate technique, but where's all your lunge stuff? Is you can be hitting people from longer range with really fast lunges. So lunge, 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 slip. That's what I want people to work on. I mean, in my club and generally. So go back to the beginning, go back to your basics, do more of them, and your regular weekly training, whether you're at a session or if you're at home, that's where you want to be practicing. I mean, with your sabre, if you want to practice sabre at home, do your 6-cut cutting drill. You've got the nice diagram for it, it's freely available, and do your 7-cut and parry Angelo drill, which has lunges as well, and then do lunge exercises, and you'll have all of the core basics that you want to be learning of body mechanics and movement and cutting. So there you go. I've just given you what you need to do. That's your homework for 2018. Anyway, that's the Christmas message and New Year. So once again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays if you want to call it that, whatever you like. And I wish you a Happy New Year as well. I'm off to get a beer. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already.